And I think
Right.
I want you to talk if there any research that you have on hand to talk about rescuing, because it is a big challenge, especially working as a parenting coach, that parents struggle with, that they feel the need to rescue their children. They
Right.
see that their children are going to fail this course, or they're going to get kicked out of the advanced course to the
Right.
remedial course.
Right.
And so the need to talk to the teacher, the need to do this and that and that. Explain to parents why they literally have to sit on their hands and zip their mouth
Hmm.
when it comes to
Hmm.
rescuing their children, because
Hmm.
they're doing more harm than good.
Well, and it's interesting because we can have the sense that if everything goes well, that the kid is going to have a perfect life. But from our perspective, and so I run a company that helps people get into college. That's what I've done since 1993. Okay, so I'm kind of in the education space. But even I would submit that the most important outcome of high school and adolescence is not where you go to university. It's the brain that you carry into adulthood. So Bill was giving a talk in Texas a couple of years ago, but pre-COVID, and he was talking about sort of the elite independent school, the elite private school here in DC, and all these kids who were struggling. And the end of it, this clinician from the Menninger Clinic, which is kind of one of the America's best mental health clinics, and it's in kids with anxiety, depression, suicide, ideation. And this clinician comes up and says to Bill, she says, I know that school, we know that school really well. We see a lot of kids who have left that school and gone to the most elite colleges in the world, Ivy Leagues and Harvard and all this kind of stuff. And then they flame out because though they can handle all the academic rigor, emotionally they cannot handle life. All that they've done, right, is get perfect grades, perfect scores, perfect, perfect, perfect. But all the problems of letting kids deal with problems got kicked down cans got kicked down the road. And then it's a disaster when they get to college. And so it's hard, right? You think, oh my gosh, because our fears are about the future. If my kid has a D in math in his maths class right now, he's going to have a D life. There's no evidence to support that. That's fear-based fortune-telling error. It's a cognitive bias. You can look it up. And when if a kid is getting a D, what we want them to do is to work with our help, with their teacher's help, with a tutor if you need it. But you want them to struggle as much as they can. There's a story in the book. I was working with a guy. This is great. Working with a guy um, for a standardized test, and he was very strong linguistically. Math was super hard, a really profound math learning disability. I give him, for the first time that we've done all this verbal stuff so he feels confident, I give him a math section. I give him the first third of it. Questions go easy to hard, the first third. So most kids could do this in sixth or seventh grade. With him, I'm not sure where it's going to come down. He comes back, they're perfect. Perfect. I'm like,
Wow.
interesting. I'm like, so tell me about that. And he says, oh yeah, yeah. He said, yeah, Jake helped me.
Oh,
Uh, who's Jake? Oh, Jake's my other tutor. So you've
wow. He
taken
got
this, right?
rescued.
Right.
Hmm.
And so I looked at him and I said, do you lift weights? And he's this big, he's like 6'2" and 210 pounds. I mean, he's this big strapping guy. Yeah, he lifts weights. And I said, remind me, what does it mean when you spot? And so for people who don't know, if I'm like doing bench press and I'm lifting weights, right, and it's really heavy and I don't know whether I'm going to crush myself, I get my student, who's this big strapping guy, to sit there, and when I start to go, he will help lift it up. But he doesn't just go up and down, right? Because I'm not lifting the weights then. He lifts just enough so I get, because that's when I struggle with it. That's when I get stronger. Now, this kid was so supported in ways that made me crazy. So he went off to college. I got an email from him 3 days ago. And it's like, do you remember me? And I'm like, what? He said, I just graduated college. It's been 7 years. Okay. So he went to college and predictably flamed out his first semester. He was then out of school for a year and a half. He then went to a local community college for 3 years and then went to the flagship school here in Maryland, the State University, and just graduated. It took him longer, unsurprisingly. One, he has learning disabilities, and two, he'd had everything done for him. We want to remind ourselves that kids want their lives to work out. They want their lives to work out. But it's incredibly important that they get the message that they're going to get out of this world what they put into it. They are going to build the life for themselves with our help. And so if a kid has a D in a class, that's a challenge. But if we act like it's a catastrophe and the end of the world, we're not giving them a very accurate model of the world, because the reality is people fail out and still graduate college. I mean, they flunk out 3 times. People, have bankruptcies and come back. And if we act like it's the end of the world and it must be avoided at all costs, then we have a real problem.